So, Dr. Sib, again, based on the social media tools, what have you guys learned? What skills are you picking up through these experiments?
I've learned how to communicate through different mediums, because when you're face-to-face with someone, it's just more personal, but I've learned how to communicate without the face, like with Blog Talk Radio, and communicate like with the lag on Skype, and how to make it personal still, even when you have a computer in the middle of you.
I've just learned to keep it like short, sweet, and to the point, because I usually like write a book, I like to elaborate, and I like to describe. But with Twitter, it's like 140 characters or less. That's all you get. You have to make it relevant, you have to make it stand out. And to me, that's a big problem that I have, but it's helping me do that.
I think there's so many tools out there, it's never ending. And I think at first I was kind of scared to try using all these different things, but now it's just like, you need to just experiment with everything and go for it, and then you'll find what works for you.
Yeah, I've definitely learned how to be flexible, because in the beginning with our tutorials, I was struggling with Jing and trying to figure that out. But now, like looking back on that, and now that we're on Blog Talk, about to go on Cover It Live, and then Ustream, it's just building blocks to more awesome tools.
And giving me more confidence in working with those tools. Like, I'm not as like freaked out about, oh my gosh, I don't know how I'm going to do this next assignment. It's just like, okay, I'll do it, and I'll try to do it well and do my best at it. And also, I think it's great that we've sort of worked on building our brand and sort of being transparent about who we are and what we're interested in, but also keeping it very professional, and that's something that I've really liked.
What about interviewing skills?
Well, I've definitely learned, how to sort of jump in and do questions a little bit better. I mean, even though I think Blog Talk is frustrating for some, it's also good because it puts you on the spot and forces you to think of a question immediately. Like, you don't have that facial reaction time with that person. They just hear silence and they're like, "What's going on?" So you have to be ready with a question that sort of ties into what they're talking about. And if it doesn't tie in, your listeners will notice. It just sounds like a jarring stop.
And like verbal interferences, I've really become aware of my mm-hms, and that's awesome.
That's so cool.
How did the research skills come in handy? I was on you guys a lot about doing the research before. Now, some of you experimented because some did research before some of the assignments, and you didn't do it for others, so you can kind of compare how you felt going in, whether you did your research or not.
I just feel more confident when you do research. And when it takes time and you have other classes, but learning how to juggle that and, I have this project and I have to research and I have to be a journalist. You have to do your homework before you interview a source, because if not, then you're just like your listeners or your readers. Like, and you're supposed to be an educator. And if you go into an interview knowing nothing, it's just pointless. Yeah, it's pointless.
Yeah, I think when I experimented with Cover It Live earlier in the semester, that was a really huge part of doing Cover It Live for me, because there was times when the speaker that I was covering wasn't really saying anything interesting, but I was like, okay, I've got to post something, and so it was good to be able to be like, okay, here's a link to his site, or here's a link to an article that the New York Times did about what he said 2 minutes ago, or here's a picture of the guy that's speaking. So I think research really comes in handy when you're in these instantaneous situations where you have to have these things to pull from to create questions or material for whatever it is that you're covering.